Photographers are lazy and hide behind bokeh. They use it as the get out of jail free card. And I'm not saying this to slate you people for doing it. I do it. You see how this background's a bit blurry? That's because it's very busy and very messy. Now I want you to see a bit of it so you know that I am a real photographer, because without the broncolor lighting, how would you know? However, I don't want you to see all of it because making a nice composition in here with lighting would be really difficult and take me a lot of time. This is important. When I was a wedding photographer, you'd turn up to a venue and it would be chaos. There'd be people everywhere, there'd be bits sticking out of heads, like, I don't know, table centerpieces, all the rest of it, all over the place. So you'd make sure you'd shoot at 2.8 or wider, because that blurry background hides the chaos. But it is the lazy option. Now, sometimes you're doing the lazy option because the other options aren't available. In a pinch, if you need to get a good photograph, blur the background. It'll do the job. However, almost always, it is not the best. Now, when shooting weddings, I always worked on a rule of there's two ways to simplify a shot. And that's kind of what we're doing. All photographs, it's how can we simplify what's going on here so that the viewer can understand it? That's what we're looking for in the grand scheme of things. It's like, do we show somebody an entire suite shot or just the suite? We want to simplify it as much as possible. And number one is blurring out the background. The other option that we often used if I had my assistant nearby was number two, which is separating the subject with light. So dropping the ambient, lighting the subject. Often, if it was carnage at a wedding, we'd do both. We'd use high-speed sync. We'd have the light nice and close, we'd expose them correctly, drop the background to stops, and also shoot at f2.2 and a 35mm lens. You've got context, you've got separation, you've got lighting. That is the easy method to make your subject stand out. What's difficult, and what is a real skill, is shooting at f16 with everything in focus and getting it nice. Now, the reason I bring up weddings, I don't shoot those, I've not shot them for many moons, or you couldn't get me to shoot a wedding for any amount of money today. But the reason I bring them up is because doing the second method is impractical, and somebody's going to mention in the comments, but I shoot weddings, we don't have time to do that. For sure, of course, I understand. I wouldn't do it either, but the real skill is shooting something with everything in focus and composing it and minimizing it to its pure simplicity to such a point that it makes perfect sense. Look at Massimo's work, for example. These beautiful, beautiful people landscapes. I don't know how else to describe them. He's one of my favorite photographers. He takes all the chaos and he simplifies it compositionally. He doesn't just get up there, frame the shot and click the shutter. He waits for every person to be in the right place. And that is a real skill. Studio Access is the platform for those of you who want a more in-depth look at photography and videography. It's not the quick fixes we share over on YouTube, it's the more in-depth and detailed information that takes longer to put out there. This is looking at behind the scenes on shoots, working with top stylists, assistants and digitechs, right the way through to practical things like security for your camera equipment, how we make sure that we don't get cleared out, looking after your lighting, care of fuses, bulbs, domes, and all of that information that just isn't for most photographers. Studio Access is designed for those who really want to excel in photography, be it as an amateur hobbyist, an artist, or a commercial photographer. It's really for those who want to go above and beyond what's available on the YouTube platform. If you head over to tinhouse-studio.com, you can find Studio Access over there, or the link down below in the comments, as well as in the description for this video. Same with studio photographers who don't blur out the background. We're the opposite of wedding photographers. We have all the time in the world to curate, and we can move things. Your background's in the wrong place, we can move it. You can't do that at a wedding or at a sporting event. Shooting a sporting event at f16 is a nightmare. Too many variables, you have no control of any. You'd be waiting all day for that decisive moment. Cartier-Bresson, on the flip side, he waited for that decisive moment because he had all day, and he didn't shoot with loads of bokeh. He made sure everything was nicely, sharp for back then. But he made sure it was all in focus so you could see the whole story with the depth. It's very rare that you will find a great photograph with a shallow depth of field. Not a good photograph, which is what mostly all of us produce, which are good photographs, a great photograph. Think of the most famous photographs in the world. Few of them have bokeh. Now again, this is not me saying I don't like bokeh. I mean, personally, I don't. I think it's overused. But because it's overused, it makes these other ones stand out. Maybe if it was the reverse and everyone shot at f16 and someone went and whacked out a 1.2 portrait and nailed focus across both eyes somehow, then yeah, I'd be like, that's pretty cool. And of course, you can have a great photograph with bokeh, you can have a good photograph with bokeh. That is not the argument here. What I'm saying is bokeh is a lazy tool to get you out of jail quick. And I know because I utilize it on the daily. The bokeh back here, yes, it's not the prettiest bokeh, but the bokeh is there for a reason. When I shot weddings, the bokeh was there for a reason. If I had to shoot a portrait of someone with really bad skin, I'm not hitting that up at f16 with 1.2 because it is the easier option. Yes, we can light any bad acne away for sure, but it takes time and time is money. And that doesn't really work out on the old model I used to have as a business. Nowadays, I've got time and money, we can spend a long time doing it, and we can shoot at f16 and get the whole lot in focus. So I think it's important to understand this for two reasons. One, because bokeh is lazy, and two, because sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you need to go, I don't have time to do all of this long-winded stuff. What's the quickest, easiest option? You know, there's a reason why people at Google look for lazy people to employ. If you're lazy, you'll find the solution quicker. If you're at a wedding, bokeh, easier solution. Number two, lighting. Number three, try and rearrange an entire room. That's not really viable. Commercially, we have the time, we rearrange it, and that's pretty much why it works out the way it does. I hope this has been of interest to you. Let me know in the comments below your views. I'm sure you have them. I'd love to hear them. I do try and read every comment. I don't always reply to them because of time, but I do like to read them. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.